Dexter, you're always stretching. Like, this dog, all he does is stretch, poop, sleep, and create holes in the backyard. And sneeze. Bless you. Hey nurse friends, back with Really? Can you stop? Because I'm trying to make a video. It's my dog in the background if you hear some clickety-clacking and sneezing. Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to be talking about my UWorld experience. How I feel about UWorld, did I love it, did I hate it? First and foremost, I'm going to talk about what UWorld does. UWorld is a study tool that can be used for many different things. You can use it for the NCLEX RN, you can use it for the NCLEX PN, you can use it for medical school, for the USMLE, steps 1, 2, whatever, how many steps they have, but it's a resource for that. Of course, if you're watching this video, then you know that I used it for the NCLEX RN, and first and foremost, UWorld is a little bit different from other NCLEX studying, NCLEX preparation materials, I guess that's what you want to call it. For example, I know that Hearst and maybe even Kaplan, I don't know because I didn't use either one of those, offer like some type of video-based content where you watch videos and it goes over the content that you need to pass the NCLEX in depth, and then they provide questions. You don't get that with UWorld. You just get a QBank. That is what you're paying for. That is all you're getting. You're not getting any videos. You're not getting a packet. You're not getting a booklet. You're not getting anyone to come and talk to you about anything. There are no live reviews. It's strictly online and it's just questions. That's all that it is. And you can purchase, and it's based off of like length. That's what the price is based off of. So you pay this much for 30 days, you pay this much for 60 days, 80 days, so on and so forth. It goes up to even 2 years you can buy it. So hey, if you are trying to prepare for the NCLEX 2 years out, why not? You know, NCLEX UWorld was a great resource for me. I bought a 30-day subscription, and then because of some other things that happened, I ended up having to renew for 7 days. Okay, so UWorld is split up into different systems. So they had like child health, mental health, adult health, critical care, leadership and management, pharmacology, fundamentals. I think those are the 7 systems that they had on UWorld. And basically you could go in and there were 4 options for you to choose how you wanted to take the test. So there was like untimed, where you just go in and you just do questions and it's not timed. There was timed, where UWorld would time you how long it took you to answer the question, and the time continued to run even as you were reading the rationale. So the time was just running continuously. I personally like to use timed tutor, which means that it timed me when I was taking the question, but as I was reading the rationale after I got the question right or wrong, time would stop, and it definitely let me gauge how long it was taking me to do each question, and it was giving me a better idea of how long it took me to get through a certain number of questions. The max that you can do as far as like picking questions in one sitting on UWorld is 75 questions. So basically I can't go in and say, okay, I want to do adult health and I want to do child health and I want 200 questions. It doesn't work like that. The max you can do is 75 questions, which was perfect for me because I wanted to get myself used to taking 75 questions just in case that's where my exam stopped. The QBank had it was like 1,900 something questions. It was just shy of 2,000. So I'm just saying I did 2,000 questions because that doesn't include the assessment. So with the assessment, it was about 2,000 questions. And so let me back up and tell you what the assessment is. With the money that you're paying, you get the QBank and you get an assessment tool. The QBank is just the questions, and the assessment was just a tool that helps you gauge your readiness for the actual test. So when I did my readiness test, it gave me within like the 68th percentile, and I guess the higher your number is, the more likely you are to pass the NCLEX on your first try or on that try that you're using this UWorld subscription for. So I did it, I got within the 96th percentile. At the time, I didn't really believe that that was any indicator of how well I was doing, but it did make me feel a little bit better. It calmed my nerves down. So I would highly suggest you do the self-assessment, see what you get, and use it as an indicator to see where you fall. My specific study strategy for UWorld was that I wrote down all of the rationales that, let me not say all, I wrote down most of the rationales that I felt I needed to spend more time learning or that I didn't know at all. So even if I got the question right, if there was good information in that rationale, I wrote it down. If I got it wrong, I wrote down whatever information I thought was important, and I literally filled up the entire notebook on just UWorld rationales. Towards the end, like I would say within about a week of me taking the NCLEX, I stopped writing down the rationales just because it is very time consuming and I had to get through as many questions as I could. So I just simply read the rationales, but I stopped writing them down unless I felt like it was extremely important that I write it down. That was my technique. It worked for me. I would recommend it. Some people learn from writing things out, and I'm one of those people, so I wrote down the rationale. And then I also studied by systems, so I wouldn't try to do a whole bunch of information at once. So if I was doing adult health, I was just doing adult health. I wasn't doing adult health mixed with a little farm, mixed with a little this or a little that. I was focusing on adult health, and even within adult health, I would try to do it by system. So if I was doing 75 questions, I would do 75 questions on adult health cardiac because it helped me remember. So if I sucked at the first 30 questions, I would read the rationales, understand what mistakes I was making, and then the last 45 questions, maybe I would get a question where information from the previous questions that I was getting wrong could be beneficial in the last 45, and that would help me remember. It helped me retain things because I was just focusing on that one system, and in the long run it helped me. So I would try to contain everything. So I'm going to do adult health, I'm going to do cardiac, I'm going to do adult health, I'm going to do respiratory, and then once I finished all my adult health questions, I would move on to the next system. So then I would focus on fundamentals, and I would pick like basic procedures and skills and just do as many questions on that as I could until I ran out of questions. That was my strategy. The rationales for UWorld were amazing. There were things that I learned there that I never heard of in nursing school. There were things that they clarified in nursing school because, you know, there are things that we're taught that at the time may seem up to par with evidence-based practice, but with UWorld, and it's constantly changing, I feel like I'm getting more up-to-date information because there were things that were clarified on UWorld I had learned a little bit differently in nursing school, and that's something that I appreciated. And it was also explained in a very clear and concise manner. There were mistakes on UWorld. That's not perfect because there were definitely some questions where I had to submit feedback because I just didn't feel like the question was written well, or there were things that were missing. It's not perfect, but still a really great resource. So advice that I would give for those of you that are using UWorld, read all the rationales. Anyone that has taken UWorld pretty much does the same thing. Read all the rationales. They're very helpful. They're very beneficial. This is what you're paying for. Don't just breeze over them and read them. Even if you got the question right and you know why you got it right, it doesn't help to just read it and cement that knowledge. Maybe there's something else that you didn't know that you can pick up from that rationale. So read all the rationales. And another huge piece of advice is don't care about your averages. My averages sucked on UWorld. They really did. Did they get better over time? They did, but in the beginning I was averaging like 54, 56. Like that's not good. That's not good at all. And in the beginning I was getting hung up on, okay, I need to make sure my averages are increasing because I had read somewhere that if your averages are consistently over 70%, that means you'll pass the NCLEX. I don't know how real that is. And eventually, I just realized that that is not what I wanted to be spending my time doing, on making sure that I was getting a certain number. I wanted to spend time focusing on making sure that I was understanding what was in the rationale, and it was for my benefit. So if you're using UWorld, if you're thinking about using UWorld, don't worry about your averages. My averages sucked. And I still passed in 75 questions. Third tip, do all of the questions. Do as many questions as you can. Out of the entire Q bank, there were only 43 questions that I did not do just because I was just too tired and I was just over it, where I was like, I'm not doing any more questions. And out of those 43, 20 were leadership and management, 20 were farm, and 3 were child health. So out of the entire Q bank, I didn't do 43 questions. Should I have done the last 43? Probably, but like, at that point, I was over it. But do all of them. Do as many as you can. This is what you're paying for. Again, you're paying for a QBank. Do all the questions that you can do. And lastly, do the self-assessment. It's important. It helps you gauge where you are. I think it was beneficial for me, so I'm going to recommend that you do it as well. Would I recommend UWorld? Absolutely. I would recommend UWorld to anyone that's going to use the NCLEX. I knew I wanted to do UWorld months before I had even finished nursing school because I had seen so many reviews, and all of them were basically good. Everyone that really was diligent about studying with UWorld, that took it seriously, that read the rationales, mostly passed in 75 questions, and that is what I was aiming for. So I would highly recommend UWorld. I know that there are other resources out there. If doing questions is just not enough for you, then maybe you need to look at one of those other resources, but I feel like it was very beneficial. The rationales were amazing. The interface looked just like the NCLEX, so I knew where all the buttons and everything was when I took the NCLEX. I just felt like I was at home on UWorld. And that is really all I have to say about UWorld. I can't continue to recommend this service enough. And I will also say that I would say about 70% of my use on UWorld was through the app, because my job allowed me to study and they didn't have Wi-Fi, so of course I couldn't use my computer. So I did almost all of my questions on the UWorld app, and the UWorld app is very easy to use and it looks identical to the actual website. That was another thing that mattered most to me. I needed whatever resources I wanted to use to be mobile. I didn't want to carry around a book. I didn't want to have to carry around a whole bunch of resources with me. As long as I had my app, I was good. And I was doing questions while I was waiting in line at the grocery store, while I was pumping gas, while I was at the airport waiting to get on my flight. So I really highly recommend the app. I loved it. I just, there's not enough words I can say about UWorld. It's a really wonderful resource. And as much as like some of these other resources are used like with schools, as far as like Kaplan and Hearst and Hesse, I feel like they should honestly incorporate UWorld into the curriculum because it was literally that good. But I'm gonna stop rambling. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about my UWorld experience or in general, please leave them down below. As always, thank you for watching. Hello to all my new subscribers. I'm very happy to see you. Welcome to the family, and I will see you in the next video.